listening to Harrowsmith Radio. I'm your host, Wayne McPhail. In this episode, a visit with an environmental nonprofit that has weathered political, social, and ecological storms and shifts. Earth Day has been around since the Guess Who's American Woman topped the Billboard charts and the hole in the ozone layer wasn't even on our radar screens. That's in the distant 70s. Earth Day Canada was born in the 90s and has been growing and adapting ever since. I talk with the organization's director about its legacy and longevity. Next up, I chat with a resident astronomer, light pollution Don Quixote, and engineer Robert Dick about how we might farm in the future on Mars. So, legacy and legumes on the red planet, all on this episode. By the way, if you want to read Harrowsmith magazine instead of listen to it, you can subscribe to the print version online at harrowsmithmag.com. And you can find Harrowsmith magazine on selected newsstands across Canada. But for now, settle in for the next half hour of Harrowsmith Radio. Earth Day, as a movement and an event, was born in the heady cauldron of peace protests, concern for the environment, and an Apollo 8 photo of Earthrise on the moon. That image helped launch an ecological consciousness that the nascent Earth Day organization latched onto. Since the 90s, Earth Day Canada has continued to preserve the activist spirit of the 70s. It's kept itself decentralized and focused not on social media clicks or exposure, but on supporting diffuse actions in the community that make a real difference to the planet. I had a chance to chat with Earth Day Canada director Pierre Lucier about his organization's focus, decentralization, and the secrets of its long life. Here's our conversation. Pierre, thanks so much for joining us. I wanted to start off by talking about the longevity of Earth Day, because one of the things that's really struck me over the years, and certainly while I was researching for this interview, was I remember when I was in high school that Earth Day was a thing, and that was back in the 70s. That was a long time ago. And over that time, there have been changes in political climate and political will around the environment, and still, year after year, decade after decade, Earth Day still is important. What's the secret of that longevity?
I think at the center of it is because it's a civil society's movement, people's movement. So it's not a country's movement. It didn't start like this. It started with two activists, so in the 70s. And so this is definitely what is at the center of it. This is a non-political, action-driven. And I think back in Canada, we had, starting, I think it started in 99. The first Earth Day was 1990, but the first, or the organization Earth Day Canada was born in 1991. And I think there was a twitch that, Canadian could make also with the celebration. So there's actually a dynamism within the organization that I haven't seen in other parts of the world. Maybe some places like New York in the States, I think there's something similar, but something, different is happening in Canada, and I'm hopeful, I'm very proud and that it's still relevant, and we're striving, we're working so hard to make it relevant after 50 years. So I guess that's part of it too.
One of the things that sparked Earth Day was the photograph from the moon of the sort of pale blue marble, right? That wonderful, evocative photograph. Yeah. I mean, it was, and so I can't think of an organization that had more of a dramatic birth than that kind of emotional connection with the isolation of Earth and the fact that we're all in it together, right?
I mean, there was numerous events that kind of created the birth of Earth Day. That is definitely the one, the Earth rising picture from, I think it was December 25th. So it was Christmas 1968, that picture. So then you had in 69, or I think it's 69 or something around that. And then you had in the Bay of San Francisco, you had a spill there. And then these are the days where air pollution was very bad. Rivers were catching fire in the US. It was a crazy time. Also, the civil movement was kind of being born at the same time. So equal rights was part of it, and peace was part of the organization at the beginning of Earth Day in the 70s. And I think this still resonates today. It's still these preoccupation, and they were born there, but they live through this celebration and then through the consciousness of people. And, we see it every day that, we need to care for our planet more now than ever.
And I think now we're seeing kind of, in terms of activism and in terms of the environment, there's kind of a perfect storm happening for an organization like Earth Day in terms of interest in social justice, interest in equality, interest in extreme weather. And so those roots of the activism and the roots of the concern back then about air pollution and spills and stuff have been reimagined or passed through a more modern lens, but they still resonate the same way, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, there's always something, we can't wait for it not to be relevant anymore, because that means there won't be sign outside of Earth Day that, scream, we need another Earth Day, External events have brought back the Earth Day movement at the forefront.
So how has the organization changed? We just talked about, political climate and people's wills and environment changed. How has the organization itself changed over the years in response to shifting priorities of people, the way people reimagine or rethink about activism around the environment? How has your organization shifted? Certainly you had to gone through all of the social media and internet changes years ago, decades ago. How have you managed to weather that storm, so to speak?
We want to innovate. This is always, we feel that we're at the helm of the boat. We're trying to kind of, show the way. So I think this is how we've seen ourselves, develop ourselves, strategically develop ourselves with. We want to support local organization, regional organization. Earth Day is, even though we're celebrate in great centers, in great cities and in Canada, but we take even more fun. We have more fun dealing with local small organization, as many as we can. And I think at the center of it is we love to kind of complicated stuff. We love to take complicated problems that are degrading our planet and work on them and keep it simple for the Canadians, bringing the complexity on us, loving the complexity and try to find this, a complex solution, but it's easy to forego for Canadians. So this is kind of the trick, but it's not been easy working and still working hard. And it is a non-for-profit organization that if we achieve our goal, we cannot tumble and, it needs to be able to grow without us tumbling down because, we're going to have 100,000 events around Earth Day, but we're still going to be 25 inside of the office, So you need a structure that can expand and can retract. So we've built this, and I think it's resilient, and we're still working on the resiliency of our organization. But outside of this, the model of Earth Day in Canada, this is where it's particular. We work with high-level programs with our partners throughout the year, and that's where most of our incomes come from. And then that pays for the Earth Day celebration that we bring to all Canadians. So that's how we've kind of balanced it.
So I want to talk about two things, the projects that you're working on. But first of all, I want to come back to this idea of want to have, it seems like, in some ways, a decentralized organization. And that seems to be resonating with the grassroots, that the bottom-up, citizen-driven social activism part of the organization. But at the same time, you're working on these high-level projects, as you said. So that's a really interesting balancing act. And I would think that given the decentralization and grassroots, that things like the birth of particularly social media and some of the more modern social media that's happening now, I'm thinking of things like TikTok and stuff like that, that's perfect for you guys, right?
It is. This is definitely a powerful tool. I think this is I think also it's closer to how we've been activists, how we've nurtured activism. So it's kind of to have these tools is interesting. It's definitely for us a great tool, but to engage people, because we don't want, we work on a campaign for Earth Day. We have our poster, we have annual campaign, but we don't want it to be a campaign. We want direct action. So it's also kind of we need to pass this kind of a swept right, left kind of a activism too, So this is kind of a trick. We're building the 2021 Earth Day, and I don't want to be online, it's not, Earth Day cannot be online. It's not online, it's outdoor, it's connected. You need to be connected with nature. You need to act. If you're going to raise fund for Earth Day, it has to be for an event that you're going to do on Earth Day. I'm going to give me money for Earth Day. Okay, what are you going to do with the money? You need to engage. It's not Earth Day is not a fundraiser. It's not a campaign. It's activism, and it is exactly decentralized activism. And into the complexity of having a decentralized organization, this is the strength of also the organization. I don't know if you understand what
and it strikes me as very similar to, and I was reading about this idea of how dandelions propagate, that you blow on a dandelion and thousands of seeds go across the field, right? That's what you're doing.
Yes. Yeah, I blew on exactly. And although, it's just kind of, it could be an act like blowing, I feel blue or I feel good, I'm going to blow. We blow intentionally on these, dandelions. And this is it. This is what the campaign, but the act is not blowing on the dandelion. It's seeding these dandelions.
Right.
This is sowing. Right. That's it. Yeah.
So let's talk about, we've talked about a lot about the grassroots aspect. Let's talk about some of the bigger projects you're working on. So you've got a number of training exercises and challenges and stuff that you've got going. So let's talk a little bit about, say, for example, Food Fight, which is an education workshop. Talk to me about that.
So the Food Fight is an educational workshop within organization. It's a lunchtime workshop, and we talk about food waste at home and how you can reduce your footprint of your waste at home, because 55% of the food that is wasted is at home. It's a very interesting model that we've discovered that works really well. We're doing 200 of these workshops, and we have requests for more than 600 of them. And most of them now are only in French, and we're bringing them to Canada. So I think this is the whole country. So this is going to be, I think we're very excited about this format too. That's one of them. We have other programs also that are kind of that we're working on a training level. We're doing another program that is called Eco Hack a City. It's with TD, the bank, which is one of our lead sponsor, and it's about training employees of municipal employees, but also bringing municipal employees with NGOs and businesses to rethink about how we're going to solve these environmental problems. And it's based on design thinking. So it's a training on design thinking, and also working on les silos, like the silos, but these silos, I don't know how you say this, but to break down the silos and bring people to work together and to imagine solution to real problem. This is very interesting. It's the first year we're doing this, and that's one of our biggest program. And then there's another humongous program, because I'm building one of the most important private supercharger or fast charging network in Canada. So we're building a network of 100 charging station. Again, now they're based more in Quebec and New Brunswick, but we want to expand. We're going to start building and finishing the 100 ones, but we have the vision of crisscrossing Canada, or having them across Canada. I hope in the next 5 years. These are the kind of programs we work on right now.
So how do you, Steve Jobs famously said that, one of the secrets of Apple is that there's one yes for 1,000 no's, right? When you're talking about so many projects and stuff, how do you say no to something?
This is it. I don't say no enough. I'm not Steve Jobs.
Right.
But it's funny because there are people coming to us. Most of the time, it's opportunities. People are calling us. It's not us kind of imagining stuff, and this is the best way it works. They call us and they have this great idea. I think we say no, we're kind of because we don't see fit to say yes, because for us, it has to be feasible. We need to be able to realize this project, and we're data driven. So it needs to generate. We have a lot of projects that are, more on the campaign side, more on the, vision, and more of you're going to be so you're going to have lots of visibility. And then you say, oh no, I don't need more. I'm not striving to have more click, I want more trees. I want less plastic. So that's one of the things. That's how we say no. Is it going to create less? Are we going to have less plastic? Are we going to have cleaner air? Are we going to have, more green? So this is how we say no. But sometimes you cannot say no because people come to you and say, well, I have this idea, and you've been thinking that would be awesome if we could do that idea. But you go like, I'm too busy. But somebody calls you and says, oh, let's do that. And you cannot say no. And this is, I always go back to my team and say, well, I know we don't have time for this, but are you going to say no to this? You cannot say no. Sometimes it's more about you cannot say no because this is our mission, this is our vision. And if we have a good opportunity to lower our impact on the environment, unfortunately, I'm not going to say no.
All right. So I want to end off on talking about something that you haven't said no to, which is the idea of environmental migrants and sort of tackling that issue. And it's also referred to as climate refugees. Can you talk about that issue and why that's so important to you and what climate refugees are?
This is so important to me because I think it's, we've always, I like for people to find me where they don't expect us. And this is a problem that, climate refugees are always kind of the others. Oh, they're in Africa, or they're in Asia because there's a tsunami in there, or there's this and that. But now climate refugees, and you'll have climate refugees is going to be for a long time. There'll be the island in Alufa Tuvalu that is going to be sank, and they won't be able to live there. But the reality of climate refugee is not that anymore. It's changing very fast. It's people that are facing wildfire. It's people that are facing flood that are going to be displaced for 2 months or a week. This is very dear to me because this is a way to reach people, to make them understand that climate is real, the climate crisis is real, and that the refugees are not outside of Canada. They're Canadians, and there'll be more and more Canadians that are going to be refugees. They're going to be climate refugees.
And you're thinking like 250 million by 2050, right? I mean, it's an amazing number.
Yeah, it's it. And this is it. It's either too much snow or not enough rain, which is that's what we get. Every now this summer is. Hopefully it's not going to be as dry as they're forecasting it. And now we don't plant trees in springtime because I'm too afraid of the trees dying of drought within the summer. So all of this is affecting, and then you have humans at the center of it. That's what it's important to realize, that, we need to lower our impact, especially with climate change, because it's affecting us in ways that we thought we would never be affected by.
Right. So speaking of things that have affected you that you didn't expect, let's talk finally about you've been involved with the organization, you've been involved with the movement for a long, long time. Are you more or less optimistic now than you were when you started?
What difference does it make? I woke up today and I'm still here, still going to work on it. It doesn't make any difference if I'm optimistic or not. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to try one more time. I had a spokesperson, he started in the 70s. So he's an activist from the 70s. He's passed away. He has passed away now, but And he said, "Yeah, it's been the 50th time I'm saying this, or the 50th. I think I'm saying the same thing over and over. It doesn't do anything." And he's kind of depressed. And I heard David Suzuki kind of said this, I said, "Guys, please stop, whatever. You're just getting old, because it's everything every time. You need to do it again and again and again. What else?"
Well, thank you very much for you and for your organization doing it again and again and again since the 70s. It's a really valuable organization, and I wish you all the best in this year and in the future.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for seeing this, and happy Earth Day to all of your listeners.
That was Pierre Lussier, an activist and the director of Earth Day Canada. As I record this, the NASA Mars Rover Perseverance, or Percy, is slowly trundling over the surface of Mars looking for organic compounds, blasting rocks with lasers, and sending that valuable data back to Earth. But here at Mission Control for Harrowsmith, we have to ask, could we farm on Mars? To find out, I asked Robert Dick, our deep space and engineering boffin. Here's our out-of-this-world chat. Robert, thanks for joining us. Right now on the surface of Mars, it's pretty amazing. We've got the Mars Rover Perseverance, and it's got two detectors on it, Sherlock and Watson, that are looking for life on Mars, or at least minerals and organic molecules on Mars. What does that tell us about the potential for Mars in terms of farming?
And usually when we think about farming, we think about farming species that we have on Earth. And unfortunately, Mars ain't Earth. So as a result of that, there's two things one can do. One can either modify the environment or complement the environment with ingredients that will allow Earth-based life to grow, or actually modify the plants that we will be growing on Mars.
Is sort of a given that whatever is grown on Mars is going to be genetically modified in some way?
I'm not a biologist in that regard, but I suspect yes. Just compare the environment of Mars. There's less sun. There's only half the sun that's on Earth. The temperatures are generally lower, and you're lucky to get the temperatures up to freezing. And in very rare conditions does it come up to room temperature. There's also low pressure. The air pressure on Mars is 1% of that we have on Earth. So nothing on Earth would grow on Mars. So you either have to create an artificial environment on Mars, which is very much a high-tech solution, or modify plants to accommodate some of those limitations. I don't think you'll ever get plants growing on the surface of Mars, but at least you can reduce the requirements. You can maybe get by with less sunlight, lower temperatures. After all, that's some of that. Those two items are really what you have up in the tundra, the Arctic tundra, and there's lots of plants that grow up there. But when it comes to lower pressure, well, you have to figure out, well, really what gases do you need? Then you can use chemical theory of partial pressures to provide enough oxygen, enough carbon dioxide, enough nitrogen to grow plants. Plants that we develop here on Earth for Mars would probably be more tolerant to lower pressures, lower temperatures, less sun. And also the minerals that are on Mars typically will be similar to the minerals on Earth going back to 4 billion years, but they're really not the sort of minerals that you can just plant the seeds into. The phosphorus, potassium, calcium, and so on. You get those out of the volcanic material, which Mars is covered with, and that's been weathered down into dust. And but it's still not in the form that plants as we know them can utilize. So then you might have to come up with some bacteria to modify the existing nutrients and convert them into something that a plant would be able to use. So it's a fascinating, at least for scientific people that are in science, it's a very fascinating problem to try to solve. Come up with something that will grow in an alien environment and yet can be metabolized by humans.
Now, in the book, The Martian, and in the movie, The Martian, that the solution to that was growing potatoes by and large. Was that really sort of practical?
It was for him. Of course, the astronaut had to make do with what he had, and that was, I think, the crowning achievement, or that was the genius behind the story, is that the author went to a great deal of trouble to find out go through the actual science to find out, is this at all possible? A lot of science fiction, they invoke unknown physics to do things. Well, he made use of what we know, and what he had on Mars, that would work. But unfortunately, it required a very high-tech infrastructure to do that. Now, the habitat they had was high-tech already, and he just adapted various aspects of it, and he had enough potatoes and enough feces around to be able to create the soil. But if you're going to do this as a more robust or a long-term planned farming activity, you really have to re-engineer not just the technology that you already have there, but develop the technology and transplant it to Mars to allow it. And this technology is both hardware and also biological or agricultural.
Great. Well, thanks very much for sharing the ideas about possible planting and growing on Mars. It's going to be remarkable to see what comes from what the rover's finding now.
And it is remarkable that the Mars does have a lot of very useful ingredients, but you might have to go looking for them. For example, in the polar caps, there's lots of carbon dioxide frozen out, and there's also lots of water vapor, so you can melt that to produce water. So the stuff is there, and knowing the distribution of where all these minerals and resources are will help them identify the best place on Mars to form that habitat.
That was Robert Dick reporting to us from his base on planet Earth. So, here we are at the end of this episode of Harrowsmith Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider subscribing to this podcast at Apple Podcasts or in your favorite podcast player. And please tell your friends and family. Got feedback? We'd love to hear it. You can email us at letters@harrowsmithmag.com. That URL, harrowsmithmag.com, is also where you can order subscriptions online. And you can find Harrowsmith Magazine on newsstands of selected stores across Canada. Until next time, for Harrowsmith Radio, I'm Wayne McPhail. And also, until next time, remember these 4 words: make, grow, sustain, share. Tune in for the next episode of Harrowsmith Radio.